In a nice change of pace, Tommy's the one hanging out at Angelica's house, rather than Angelica hanging out at Tommy's house. Grandpa Lou's off on a fishing trip while Stu and Dee Dee, Tommy's parents, are off on a vacation together alone, possibly some kind of romantic getaway. Therefore, Tommy's staying with his Aunt Charlotte and Uncle Drew until they get back. It's breakfast time at Angelica's house, and Tommy's having some kind of mush with a bottle of milk while Angelica's having alphabet cereal, using the bits of it to spell out her name on Drew's tie that he happened to leave on the kitchen table. When Drew comes in looking for his tie, he takes it off the table and wrings the milk and cereal out. When Drew and Charlotte are too busy to pay any attention to Angelica and Tommy, Angelica spills her milk on the kitchen floor to get their attention, but Charlotte and Drew just ask Angelica to clean up the mess, or they both leave the kitchen for work. However, Angelica's parents return just moments later when they realize they haven't actually found anyone to watch their daughter and nephew for the day. Charlotte reminds her husband that she has an important meeting with some of the owners of famous Ethel's Cookies. She's trying to convince him to sell their company to Merge Corp. But Drew reminds his wife that he's going bungee jumping in a hot air balloon with the CEO of Cyber Systems International, knowing that it would be way too dangerous for him to take the kids up in the balloon with him. When Angelica claims that she can look after Tommy, her parents, after humoring her, explain they'd feel better if there was a grown-up around to watch them. Drew and Charlotte then brainstorm about who could watch their daughter and nephew for the day. 1. Betty and Howard can't do it because they took Phil to the big tractor pull. 2. Chaz can't do it because he went to a therapist convention in the hopes of finding one for himself and presumably took Chucky with him. 3. After Charlotte questions if she and Drew know any other babysitters, he says they do, but none of them are willing to come back a second time, not realizing that the sitters won't come back because of Angelica. Charlotte then decides to take the kids to work with her. Drew's a little skeptical, but ultimately agrees to it since it's not likely they have any other options. Charlotte drives into work at Merge Corp headquarters. After Charlotte parks her car, she agrees to let Angelica help her work and asks her to help carry her briefcase, which Angelica has trouble with due to how big and heavy the briefcase is and how small she herself is. When Charlotte's talking on the phone to her executive assistant Jonathan, Angelica's asking her mom a bunch of questions about what working at Merge Corp is like, and Charlotte does her best to answer them. When Angelica asks her mom these questions, she actually sets off a high-tech alarm on a nearby car. While she thinks it's cool, what noises make Tommy start crying in fear. After they get in the elevator, Charlotte calms down Tommy and Angelica presses all the buttons, making the elevator stop at every floor. Charlotte and the kids eventually get to the floor that Charlotte's office is on. Charlotte's assistant Jonathan is shown pacing, having got worried about what made Charlotte take so long to get up there. Charlotte introduces the kids to Jonathan, who seems happy to meet Tommy but is shocked to see Angelica, who tells him, "I told you I'd be back," indicating they've met at least once before. Charlotte asks Angelica to help Jonathan get her briefcase, which makes Angelica realize that she accidentally left it in the elevator. Jonathan dives in and manages to get it, but not before the elevator door briefly closes on him. After he gets her briefcase, Charlotte asks Jonathan if everything's set up for the meeting with Ethel and Abe. Jonathan shows her 2 models that he made especially for today. He claims it took all night and 14 cups of coffee to do it. One side shows a replica of a small, boring town, presumably a metaphorical representation of what famous Ethel's Cookies currently is, but then he pulls the lever to reveal the other side. Famous Ethel's Cookie World Entertainment Park, a large amusement park to metaphorically shows the company's potential by selling out to Megacore. Charlotte and the kids are impressed with the model. Angelica wants to play with it, think it's a toy, but Charlotte explains it's not a toy and she really needs it for work. When they get to Charlotte's office, the kids start playing around with the decor, with disastrous results, including a broken fish tank, which housed Charlotte's fish named Vesco and Bosky. When Angelica puts the fish in a pitcher, Charlotte asks Jonathan about the company daycare center, but Jonathan points out that she got rid of it. Charlotte then decides to reinstate it. After seeing how stressed his boss is, Jonathan suggests postponing the meeting with Ethel and Abe, but Charlotte doesn't want to give up on it, so she asks Jonathan to watch her daughter and nephew while she's at the meeting. Once her mom leaves, Angelica tricks Jonathan into leaving as well by asking him to get her a glass of water. Once he's gone, Angelica tells Tommy they're going to look for the toy from town from earlier. Tommy wonders if that's a good idea, but Angelica assures him it's fine, since her mom's the head of the company. Just after they leave, Jonathan returns asking what kind of water Angelica wanted, but when she But when he sees she and Tommy are gone, he leaves to find Charlotte, as he knows he'll be in a lot of trouble if anything bad happens to the kids. At the boardroom, Charlotte's talking to Ethel and her husband, who still aren't sure about selling to MergeCore. Ethel explains that despite the fame, popularity, success of their cookie brand, the company they have is still pretty small. Ethel and her husband figure that executives from a big company like MergeCore would have the time to really coddle it like they could, but Charlotte tries assuring them that she could do it as well as they could. Meanwhile, Tommy and Angelica look for the room with the Cookie World model, and they end up making a mess of the stockroom on their way over. Tommy puts $1 million contract through the shredder. Angelica starts typing in one of the computers, causing MergeCore stock to plummet. Back in the boardroom, Charlotte tells Ethel and Abe that by selling their company to MergeCore, their business will increase 1,000-fold. Jonathan then runs in and tells Charlotte that Tommy and Angelica have gone missing. Charlotte is outraged when she hears this, but then calmly asks Ethel and Abe to excuse her and that Jonathan will look after them while she sees to a minor crisis. As she leaves, Jonathan tells Ethel and Abe about their fax machine, seeing that their company's cover letter says, "Just the Fax," a reference to the TV show Just the Fax Man. Ethel admits that she and her husband don't really watch TV, claiming that they think it's evil. Tommy and Angelica find the room with the Cookie World model. They climb onto it and Angelica tells Tommy she'll play the amazing gigantic girl, a giant version of herself, while he can play the normal-sized townspeople. Tommy asks her what he is supposed to do and she tells him to run and scream while she tries to stomp him. Angelica then begins to play, causing severe damage to the model. Tommy, learning from the giant Angelica, trips the switch that operates the model, causing it to spin rapidly before trapping Angelica on the Cookie World side. Charlotte runs down the hall looking for Tommy and Angelica. When she stops at the water cooler, which now has Vesco and Bosky in it, Charlotte realizes the kids are most likely where the Cookie World model is and rushes to it. When she gets to the room, she's relieved to find that Tommy's okay. She wonders where Angelica is. Her nephew responds by rotating the model once more, showing his cousins among the wreck that was once famous Ethel's Cookie World Entertainment Park. After Angelica initially tries blaming everything on Tommy, Charlotte firmly scolds Angelica and points out she's not only wrecked a very expensive model and ruined a very important business deal, she also deliberately disobeyed her and set a bad example for Tommy. As Charlotte assures Angelica she won't fire her, as she's her daughter and will always love her, she also tells her that next time she asks her to do or not do something, she wants Angelica to be a good girl and do as she's told. Jonathan's outside the room with Ethel and Abe, who have witnessed the entire event. Ethel says she and her husband might have picked a bad time for business and that she and Abe will come back to them with their final decision. Jonathan asks Charlotte if they're going to accept her bid, but she tells him she doesn't think they will. Charlotte also fires Jonathan for not keeping a closer watch on her daughter and nephew, and after he leaves, Charlotte and the kids go back home. Later that afternoon, Drew returns home as the kids are playing in the living room, and after Angelica explains to her dad that her mom had a bad day at work, Charlotte comes downstairs. Just as Drew's about to comfort her, the doorbell rings. Jonathan's at the door. He apologizes for interrupting Charlotte and her husband, but explains that Ethel and Abe are with him and that they called him and insisted that he take them to Charlotte's home. Charlotte tries apologizing for what happened earlier, but Ethel stops her and explains that she and Abe were so impressed by Charlotte's maternal instincts towards her daughter and nephew that they've decided to sell their company to hers based on it. Ethel then suggests she and Charlotte go out for a celebratory dinner that night with their husbands. Drew and Charlotte, ecstatic to hear that, join them, and Charlotte rehires Jonathan and gives him a promotion. The new supervisor for the company daycare center she's reinstating. She also makes him babysit Angelica and Tommy that night while she and Drew have dinner with Ethel and Abe, which Jonathan obviously isn't looking forward to, mostly because of Angelica.